When you turn over the test paper for IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, you are usually greeted by something like this: a tangle of lines, intersecting data points, and fluctuating numbers. Your job is to summarize this information in a 150-word report, and the most critical part of that report is a single paragraph called the overview. This one paragraph dictates a full 25% of your total writing score under the criteria of task achievement. The scoring rubric is strict on this point. To reach a band 7 in task achievement, your essay must present a clear overview. If you fail to include one, your score for this section is automatically capped at a band 5. Facing all this data, a common reaction is to start listing numbers. Test takers often write down the starting point, the midpoint, and the end point for every single category. This creates a robotic list of statistics, not a summary. Instead, think of the overview as a general description in words. Your goal is to tell the macro story of the graph. Imagine you are explaining the chart to a child. Your description needs to be that simple and easy to comprehend. Success in Task 1 does not require mathematical precision. It requires you to step back from the raw data and identify the broad patterns. To find those broad patterns, we have to separate specific details from general trends. A specific detail is a precise number attached to a specific date. A trend is the overall direction a category is moving over time. These trends are the key features of the chart. They are the movements that stand out to the naked eye. You should be able to spot them without tracing your finger over to the axis to check the exact numbers. Your objective is to identify 2 to 3 of these primary trends. That is all you need to form the basis of a complete 2-sentence summary paragraph. By learning how to isolate these trends quickly, you can draft your entire overview in under 2 minutes. That secures your task achievement score early and leaves you plenty of time to focus on the body paragraphs. This line chart shows the percentage of the population traveling abroad for holidays between 2002 and 2012. Step 1 is the no numbers rule. We completely hide the vertical scale on the left. Hiding the scale stops your brain from trying to calculate percentages. It forces you to rely entirely on visual observation and look at the actual shape of the lines. Now ask yourself, if you had to describe what these lines are doing using only hand gestures, what movements would you make? You would likely point your hand upward for most of them and keep your hand flat for one. That mental shift from counting to observing gives you the exact language needed for a Band 7 general description. Let's make those observations concrete. Draw a straight imaginary arrow from the starting point of a line directly to its endpoint, ignoring all peaks and valleys. Now, sort those arrows into simple categories: up, down, or stable. Which items increase? France, Spain, and the UK. Which decrease? None in this case. And which stay the same? Germany ends exactly where it started. You have just outlined the first sentence of your overview. 3 countries experienced an upward trend, while 1 remained flat. By grouping the data this way, you prove to the examiner that you can intelligently organize information, rather than just transcribing individual lines one by one. Once the overall directions are clear, we need to find the specific features that define the start and end of the timeline. We do this by hunting for extremes. An extreme is the absolute highest point on the chart, the absolute lowest point, or the most noticeable gap between 2 categories. First, check the beginning of the period. On the far left in 2002, France is the dominant category. Next, check the finish line. On the far right in 2012, the UK finished with the highest figures overall. Keep your standards high here. If a highest point or a gap isn't obvious enough to see from across the room, it is not an extreme. Leave it out. France starting at the top, and the UK finishing at the top. These are the highly visible key features that elevate a generic summary into a clear Band 7 overview. Let's assemble our findings into an academic paragraph. We start with the up and stable groups we found earlier. Overall, the percentage of the population traveling abroad for holidays increased in most countries, with the exception of Germany. Then we attach our extremes for the second sentence. At the start of the period, France had the highest figures, but by 2012, the UK had become the most popular country for traveling abroad. Perform a quick 0 number check. Read through the text. You will notice there are no percentages listed. We have described the data entirely in words. Finally, look at the very first word, overall. This is a cohesive device that acts as a giant flag for the examiner, telling them exactly where your overview begins. This simple two-sentence structure, grouping the directions, then calling out the extremes, is a reliable, fast way to secure top marks in task achievement. This process is not limited to line graphs. The exact same logic applies to bar charts, tables, and pie charts. You ignore the raw numbers, group the movements, and highlight the extremes. For your next practice test, try it yourself. Cover the axis with your hand. Draw mental arrows across the page, and write your two sentences before you look at a single statistic. By doing this, you stop reacting to individual data points and start recognizing the broader story. And that is exactly what the IELTS examiners are looking for.